Give it to Johnny Bosch. Let's just put it up.
For me, it's any kind of intellectual character because I'm an idiot. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around numbers and science.
The science talk is hard.
Yeah, well, it's not even necessarily just like
the characters I would.
Well, no. I love to play them because they're a great challenge. But any intellectual character is because I am the best way I can describe it is street smart. I'm not book smart, and it's funny because I hang out with Xander all the time. He's book smart and not street smart. So the better fit it is for Xander, the more I'm gonna suck at it, and kind of vice versa. So I actually just steal a lot from him. I'm like, what did you do on this audition? Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna remember that.
And then whenever I have to audition for a street smart character, I'm just like, hey, I'm Ed Basco.
You turned into Dracula?
Hey, I'm Ed Basco. I'm from the hood. Yeah. Good question. Is there another question from the audience? Yeah, what's up, Craig?
What's up? This is gonna sound a little weird, but I'll gun for it. Anyway, do you, as voice actors, do you believe there should be a musicality to every line that you say? Because sometimes I have a habit of doing that with my lines.
Ooh, should there be
Absolutely
a musicality
not.
to what you say?
To every single line? Absolutely not. Your job is to be believable, and people don't always talk like this, or with a musicality. Sometimes flattening things out is absolutely the way to go. Sometimes throwing things away are the way to go. Yeah, no.
Okay, the way I'm going to say this is because because I'm a directing major actually in college. Musicality is a very broad word. I don't necessarily think of it like every line has to have a musicality in terms of like actual music, but like in terms of like a rhythm or just like have a specific sound to it. Like everything has a musicality to it. Everything has a certain sound, a certain rhythm, a certain pitch, a certain tone, everything. And I think just finding that's the musicality you need to find in every single line.
Yeah, because every time, and I want to add to that, like anytime I talk, like certain lines, like it'll be high and it'll drop down, just like that. So.
I think it's important to remember, like, if you're focusing too much on how it sounds, I mean, you have to know how it sounds, but the most important part is the acting. You know what I mean?
There you go.
So I say that try focusing less on on the musicality and focus more on the intent you're trying to get across.
Very true.
Thank you.
Any other questions out there? No? All right, so my question for you guys is, before you all became superhero voice actors, what did you do as part-time or full-time jobs as ordinary civilians?
Okay.
So maybe the most interesting job you had before you were a voice actor, or the one that you had right before you started.
I have to censor myself.
It
makes sense on you.
Danielle, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, God.
Give us the job you did before being a voice actor.
Is it still working?
Yeah, it should be on now.
Test it. Oh, hello.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Oh.
It's shorted out, so I guess I had to restart
Okay.
it.
All right. Well, my first job was, so I worked at a store before it, rest in peace, called KB Toys. And yeah, it sounds like a fun place to work, but it was fun sometimes, like around Christmas, but around that, like before all that, it was like, I hate this job. I have to sleep standing up because I can't afford to go to sleep at home. And then I'm like, that's another reason why I wanted to go to voice acting. I wanted to leave that. And I also worked in a place called Corner Bakery Cafe. And I think that was a lot more fun than KB Toys. I got to eat all the food.
You worked at Corner Bakery Cafe?
I did.
So when I was like, hey, Danielle, do you want to go to Corner Bakery Cafe? Were you like,
you know what? I still go to Corner Bakery. I love their cheddar broccoli
great.
bread bowls and their lemon bars. I still go.
awesome.
But yeah.
Real question, Corner Bakery or Panera?
Ooh. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be biased here. I'm gonna go for Panera.
I'm also
I'm
going
sorry,
to go Panera.
Connor.
I'm
gonna
a
go
sucker
Panera.
for a good
I
bread
love-
bowl. I'm not going to lie. Because
I
it's
love
soup in a bowl, but then you can eat the bowl.
Yeah,
exactly.
The bowl, and then you put the soup, and then, oh.
Panera's mac and cheese is pretty boss.
it is.
Yeah. But Corner Bakery has like this oatmeal, and it's like cold, and it's like sugar.
Yeah, but
in
Christina,
a
it's
bowl.
a bowl.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, I am.
When you know you're
Okay.
open, you take the bowl back to the guy and say, hey, I'm done. When I'm done with my soup, I eat the bowl.
You know what? I
do it.
I am a Red Bull snob because
Ooh.
okay, well let's loop around. I'll just jump in here. My longest job that I had was working at Disneyland as a Jungle Cruise skipper when I was 17. And they spoiled me on Red Bulls forever because the Red Bulls in Clown Chatter at Disneyland are amazing.
They're really good.
I
Like
love
$30,
them.
but they're really
Crazy.
good.
I know, right?
Well, it's because they make the sourdough fresh, like right
Yes.
there. Yeah.
Well, let's go to Disneyland. It's not that far, guys.
It's not.
If I had money.
Xander, part-time job, something that you did before voice acting.
Oh yeah, I had 2 jobs I really, really hated before voice acting. I worked at a pizza place, which is terrible. Just not a fun job.
Don't
And
say
then-
Chuck E. Cheese.
No, it wasn't Chuck E. Cheese, thank God. And then I taught at a theater camp for a couple of summers. And it was like, children can be the worst. And it was just, yeah, it was bad. It was not a good time. Mine I actually still work at.
Don't say the name of the place then. You want to stay there.
No, I don't. I'm actually I'm quitting in the summer.
Oh, then let us.
So it's Parks and Rec for the city of Glendora. And contrary to what I said in the last panel, I actually don't hate kids. I hate my coworkers because they're all it's all like spoiled white Glendora kids who just got everything they wanted through their whole life, and because of that, 1, they always get whatever they want, and 2, they have absolutely no ambition. And since I'm in a position of management and I'm dealing with those people, it's absolutely painful. Just no.
Kyle?
Well, crap. Let's see. Well, I was a starving artist when I first got to LA back in 2005, and through my radio connections, someone that worked kind of behind the scenes hooked me up with a job doing post-production/production, aka run the board and edit the shows for an online talk show format about recovery, addiction recovery. It was very interesting. So I would run the board, and we would stream the show online and on a couple of AM stations, and I got paid like next to nothing. Then I would go home and chop up the files and upload it and stuff like that. And it was really cool because I met a couple of celebrities that told their story of addiction. It was really, really fascinating and interesting. Other than that, my first crappy job was sacking groceries.
Oh my god.
And I did that for a year, and like, no thanks. I said, how come I never got it? When I was leaving that job at the grocery store, I go, how come you guys never, I had a chance to like move up to being a cashier? It's like, you never said anything. Oh, I didn't know I had to. I thought people just like, they do a good job and they get promoted or something. Oh well.
Do you guys know, OG Banks?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just on the drive here. I was listening to KFI. Like next Sunday, OG Banks joins us in the studio. I was like,
Oh, nice.
KFI. It's talk radio.
And along the line.
I'm going to cheat because I want to answer this question because I actually have one that I'm really proud of. I used to work at Universal Studios, and I did that for years. But one of the things that I got to do there was I got to be Scooby-Doo in the giant costume with Shaggy. And I retired in October to do the full-time voiceover thing. So, but that is easily one of the coolest things I've ever done, is to get to be Scooby-Doo and light up kids' faces every day.
Get punched in the crotch by tourists. And
I'll tell you the most annoying thing is when they would yank your tail and then you just fall off balance, and it was just, because they would do that all the time. Yeah.
He kept the suit, by the way.
They would have come after me. They are so protective of
He
themselves.
still wears it to this day.
You joke, it's in our hotel room. It's weird.
Isn't there like a union for costume
There,
performers?
it's called AFTRA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a specialty union for like people who swallow fire or throw knives or are costume performers, so mascots.
Performance-oriented type thing.
Like specialty things, but yeah, so it's actually before the unions merged, that was a really easy way to get into SAG because you'd be in that for a year, and they would give you your SAG card because you'd be eligible, having been in a sister union.
Oh, okay.
So it was nice. In my head, it was like, oh, I got a loophole.
Yeah, that's
Nice,
how
good
I
loophole.
got in because the first game I did, Union, was through AFTRA, with Final Fantasy.
Oh yeah.
That was sweet because it was like, oh, it pays for that, and then I still get to eat. Thank you.
Yeah, little things.
Little things and like. My voice is like dropping like 10 octaves.
So we
So-
just figured out how for you to drop that.
Right. Again, I want to check with the audience. Any questions for the panel? Yes.
Speaking about that, you like playing Scooby Doo.
Yes.
If they would bring back any old like Hanna-Barbera or Warner Brothers cartoons, would you guys like to play from that cartoons from that era?
Oh, that's a really good question. You should take my job.
I want to see Animaniacs come back.
Yeah!
I don't want to voice any of them because they're all still working and they all still need to be Yakko, Wacko, and Dot.
Yeah.
But to be in that universe and to voice someone in the same room with that league of whoa, that would be like, oh my god, yeah, the squeak.
It's like my first answer that came to mind. I feel like it's, I mean, because the movie just came out, but I always wanted to see Jem come back.
Yes.
Oh my god, I remember Jem.
Yeah, I loved Jem when I was a kid.
That would be outrageous.
That would be
Truly outrageous.
Yes.
I'm too young to get that joke.
You know what Jem is, stop it.
I know what it is. I never watched it.
It's on Netflix.
I'm gonna say Marvin the Martian, actually.
Yes!
She said Warner Brothers, so
There you go.
yeah, I'm gonna go with Marvin the Martian. It's just too much fun.
Gotta go
I mean,
with
but
the
they're doing
classics.
Wabbit, so technically. They're supposed to be a kaboom!
They already did a revival of Top Cat, so that I would say the Funky Phantom. I would want to voice the Funky Phantom just so I can be like, yeah, I'm the Snagglepuss meets Scooby-Doo ripoff. That's my job.
Can I tell you something? Since you brought up Hanna-Barbera, but as a kid, I still am. I was terrified of Brack.
Oh my god.
He is horrifying for some reason. I'm not sure what it is, but I don't know. I don't know what it is, but he's scary.
Boy, that's such a, let me think.
Oh gosh.
Hanna-Barbera 1.
Oh, I can't think of either for Hanna-Barbera. I'm gonna break here. I was gonna go with Jem because that is my jam.
Yes.
My gosh, huge role model growing up. But I'm gonna have to go with Rainbow Bright. That is my ultimate jam. Love to see that.
That's a really good question.
To Google.
No, seriously, like, did they do it? Did they do Warner? Hang on, I just want to make, because I'm going to sound real stupid if I screw this up. No, I don't think Warner did that. Damn it. All right. I would really love to see Snagglepuss come back. For whatever reason, I really like that character. Because I know that he was based on the Cowardly Lion, who I find hysterical.
Yeah.
So anything Snagglepuss related would be really cool to see come back.
I'm gonna change mine to Lunatics Unleashed.
God, get out!
Yes!
Get out!
Yes!
Oh my god.
I loved that show. It always wakes me up like every Saturday morning whenever it's on.
I'm gonna have one more. If we're gonna go there, we need to bring back Biker Mice from Mars.
Why are you trying to
Biker
kill
Mice
us?
from Mars. Oh
No.
my God. How about
Not Biker Mice.
Cowboys of Moon.
Oh my god! I thought I was the only person that watched that show.
All we need now is Samurai Pizza Cats.
Yes! Yes!
Bring it all back.
Cow and chicken. Cow and chicken.
Yes!
That's got it. Cow and Charlie Adler show. Basically. I was gonna say SWAT cats, but then.
I actually
I
did
don't
watch
think
Cow and Chicken growing up. I'm not too late for that.
Do you guys remember Road Rovers?
Rovers, that was, and then Mighty Ducks, and then you had Street
That's
Sharks.
Mighty-
It was
oh my
like,
God, that
hey,
was awesome.
what animal
Mighty
team do you want to have next? It was like
I love
pick a
them
biker
all.
mice. I was like, what the heck is going on?
Mighty Max. Mighty Max.
Yes!
I would like to see a crossover between Mighty Max and Mad Max. And see what
Like
It would be called
Okay, there was also
Max.
there was a really awesome show called Cyber 6 that I would love for them to do more of because it was gorgeous.
Excuse me, we don't talk about cyber sex.
Six, the number 6, guys, 6.
I would actually never want Cyber 6 to come back because they would never get that kind of budget approved again. If you guys haven't, just watch the first episode. It is one of the most visually
It's
beautiful
insane. It's
animated
wonderful.
things. Like her cape moves so much, it must have been the biggest pain in someone's ass for like a year just animating her cape.
It's gorgeous.
Yep.
Okay, so this show isn't that old, but can we just talk about how, like, Jackie Chan Adventures had no reason to be as good as it actually was. Take our back.
One more. Yeah, it's so, have you never seen this?
No, I've never seen
It's so good. It was only like, was it like 13 episodes?
Yeah.
It was something super short.
Yeah, no, it
Look
was
at that.
it was a French Canadian production.
Yes, it does look, it's a very anime style.
It was a French Canadian, and like the bad guys are like Nazi scientists.
It
and
was
it's
so good. Also,
super
Christina,
weird.
you could have totally been her voice. Cause like,
I feel like I could
it's so good.
really
cool.
So good.
Every show I love every
Who was the studio that did this?
I forget.
It was some French Canadian production, and it was all done. It was all voiced up in Canada.
The problem was this was on like Fox, but it was buried between like it had like X-Men
Yeah.
around it and Batman and all that
Apparently, it
stuff.
did pretty well on. I think it was Teletoon back in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of Canada, it just never caught on.
But it was so good.
Do you guys remember Eat the Cat?
Which
Yes,
Eat the
cat.
Cat?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. There's a lot of shows I'd like to see come back, obviously.
Yeah, I would love, that would be really good to see all the
Really good question, my God.
Great
Like,
question.
That was a very good interesting
nostalgia
question.
bomb. Yeah. Any other questions from the audience before we take another one? All right. So we've been very jovial and happy, and voiceover is a wonderful business, but there are some times with actors that we face adversity and tough stuff happens. So one thing that inevitably happens in every actor's life is we get recast. We sign up for something, we try to give it a shot, and for whatever reason it doesn't work out. Is there a particular moment, maybe your first recast ever, that you remember very vividly? And if you're comfortable, maybe tell the story, not necessarily naming any names, but what kind of happened and how you dealt with it.
I could talk about mine.
Go for it.
So this one hit really hard because this was actually a really big role for me. And it was like the first big opportunity I got. I was like so freaking excited, and I go in, and so the director plays like the audition recording. I play back, and he said, "Okay, so we want something like this, just a little softer, more like, yeah." Like we go through the first line, and it's like 20 takes. Then the second line is like 15, 20 takes, and then the third line's like 15, 20 takes, and then he decides, okay, 1 second, so he goes back, and then he comes back and he says, okay, I think I was directing you all wrong, so let's do this again. Go all the way back to the beginning. We go back to the first line, it's like 40 takes on the first line again. And finally he opens the door to the booth, comes in and says, hey, this has been a tough one to cast because like, it's just been rough figuring out some of these characters. So like in some scenes they sound really good. In some, the voice just doesn't work. I think that's what happened here, and sorry. And then that was followed up immediately with another recast for me. So that was a really, really tough month for me.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The first game I recorded in LA, I actually got recast on, so that was fun. Thankfully, I was still in the project as another character, but the reason I got told for the recast, and I'm sure they were just trying to be nice, but it certainly made me feel better, was, he was this villain who sounded like this the entire time. And the director was like, it's not working, it's not, So I'm leaving, and they're like, it just sounded too much like the ghost host from Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. I was like, well, I feel really good about myself now, because I love that character. So that one, thankfully, the blow was pretty soft. But, yeah.